Hello everybody, Nathan Forst here, reviewing the final episode of Dexter for you today. Before I begin this review, I would like to warn you that I will be revealing spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode yet, please turn this video off and come back to it after you are done viewing the finale. Trust me when I tell you that watching this without being spoiled is a necessity. In the past 8 years, we have accompanied Dexter throughout many hardships and his struggles with his dark passenger. In the beginning of the series, he was just trying to survive by obeying and acting on the code, a set of principles that he followed to help guide his need for killing. As the series progressed, Dexter began to want more out of his life. We watched as he juggled a complicated personal life and his ever-present darkness. At first, his family life was a cover, a means to keep him hidden and safe, a way for him to continue his bloody work in secret. But the great thing about Dexter is his need to evolve as a human being. He was never content just staying in a singular, familiar place. He wanted more for himself, and, as an extension, so did we. His family life became more meaningful to him, no longer just a cover, and, as with all things, events unfolded that were out of his control. We were there to witness his losses, the death of his wife, and the numerous tragedies that accompanied his need for companionship. In the end, one of the lessons we learned from Dexter is that none of us want to be alone. We have a burning desire to connect with others, even if just for a little while. And this is true for those segments of humanity inflicted, or infected, with what Dexter called a dark passenger. Dexter is the story of a man tormented by demons. These demons possess him, and for the majority of the show, they drive him to actions he cannot control. His darkness isn't a choice, it's a compulsion. But Dexter is more than a simple slave to his darker nature. He is an ever-evolving storybook, one that we, as the audience, often look at and feel sympathy and compassion for. His story is not static, it changes, and with it, so does he. And because of his ability to adapt, and his brain's capability of incredible neuroplasticity, he eventually grows beyond the compulsions and into a man that wants and needs a brighter, better life, not just for himself, but also for those people that he cares about. His son, his sister, his adopted children, and the woman he loves. And this is where the finale takes us to. At the end of the last episode, Dexter made a decision to keep Oliver Saxon, Evelyn Vogel's estranged serial killer son, known as the brain surgeon, alive, strapped to a chair in an abandoned hospital. This was a breakthrough moment for his character. Throughout the series, Dexter needed to quench his desire to kill. Now, right at the penultimate moment of the series, the time where he has the most to lose and the most to gain, he comes to the realization that he does not need to kill Saxon. Instead, he leaves him to his sister, Deborah, and heads off with the intention of running away with Hannah McKay, the woman he loves. Unfortunately, as is the case with all things Dexter, the serial killer is freed by the U.S. Marshal following Deborah, and the Marshal is killed because of it. Deborah walks into the room just in time to get shot by the U.S. Marshal's gun that Saxon took off the Marshal's dead body. The finale begins with Deborah shot, bleeding out on the floor. During Dexter's run, we have come to an understanding that a certain level of terrible action and reaction exists in his world. Any moment where he reaches out for his lost humanity, he is struck back with torment and pain. Once again, he must decide whether or not to embrace the voice of his dark passenger, give in to revenge, or go and pursue a free, happy life with the woman he loves. With his sister injured and in the hospital, Dexter begins to plan a counterattack against Saxon. This time, the call of revenge wins out, and he stays in Miami, sending his son Harrison with Hannah. For some reason, Hannah, a known fugitive, along with Harrison, take public transit instead of driving to the next town's airport. I thought this was a silly plot development. Why would a known fugitive risk taking more public transportation than needed? It would have been much safer for her to drive to the airport with Harrison instead of taking the bus. And sure enough, Elway, The private investigator, wanting to capture Hannah McKay for the large amount of reward money, somehow finds her in the middle of a conversation with Harrison on the bus. There is a lot about this episode that I love, but this scene felt flat to me. How did he get there exactly? As a reason, we are given that Elway has contacts everywhere, and these contacts somehow spotted her while the rest of the citizenry didn't. In this day and age, with global media, laptops, tablets, cell phones, and cameras absolutely everywhere, am I seriously supposed to believe that a known fugitive wouldn't be recognized by anyone else and turned into the cops? This is why going to the bus station was such a ludicrous plot development. But it happened. And sure enough, Elway showed up like a rabbit out of a hat. This was supposed to be a suspenseful scene, but I couldn't put aside my level of disbelief to properly get immersed into the on-screen action. The suspense was quickly deflated when Hannah outmaneuvers Elway by sticking him with a horse tranquilizer. On a public bus, she had to reach across the aisle and stick it into his leg. Apparently nobody noticed this act of violence. Once again, I rolled my eyes. All the bus scenes were completely out of the realm of possibility. Both Hannah and Harrison are able to get off of the bus at their next stop, making it safely to the airport. Dexter immediately regrets not killing Saxon. Worried for his sister's life, he goes to the hospital, hoping to get ahead of Saxon before he reaches the still living Deborah. He gets in the hospital to witness a brutal scene. A man victimized by Saxon, bleeding all over the emergency room floor. This poor man was simply camouflage, a way for Saxon to enter the building unnoticed to exact his revenge on Dexter. Dexter goes upstairs to see Saxon with a gun in the hallway. This was an intense scene, and for a moment, I thought there would be a fight and shots fired within the hospital hallway. The two of them stare each other down with bloodthirsty greed, only to have Angel swoop in and arrest Saxon. Immediately, Dexter runs to Deborah's room, only to find it empty. He finds Quinn down the hallway instead, in an emotional wreck. Deborah took a turn for the worse, and there were complications with her surgery. She is alive, but on life support, not able to even breathe on her own. The doctor tells the two men that she is not expected to recover. Her brain has been damaged due to lack of oxygen caused by a blood clot. This was a scene that I personally loved. Quinn was emotional, crying, and trying to keep his and Dexter's spirits up by saying that Deborah could beat this, that if anyone could accomplish such a miracle, she could. Then you look at Dexter, and you can see it in his eyes. He knows that his sister is gone, murdered by the man he spared. When Quinn begins to talk about miracles, Dexter simply says, as he turns to walk away, "I have never seen a miracle." In this moment, Dexter resolves himself to take revenge. He heads to the police station to do a forensic test on Saxon and see him for one last time. Of course, his intent is anything but innocent. This was an intense scene, albeit a bit unbelievable. There is a video camera in the detainment room, but no microphone. The two men face each other, talk briefly, and then Dexter fully admits to Saxon that he went there to kill him with a pen. Saxon swallows the bait whole, grabs the pen, and violently and randomly stabs at Dexter, hits him in the shoulder. Dexter counters, grabs the pen, and ruthlessly plunges it into Saxon's neck. He stands there for just long enough to watch the life drain out of his victim's eyes before pressing the alarm button. Of course, in reality, this scene could have never worked. There would have been a guard there to oversee the procedure and protect the forensic agent. There might have even been a microphone in the room recording the whole conversation. That would be damning evidence. But in the show, it is a well-done piece of narrative. This scene shows that Dexter has given up hope of peace and happiness, going so far as to risk exposing himself to criminal charges. He just doesn't care anymore. Hannah is gone. Harrison is gone. They are safe and out of harm's way. His sister is as good as dead. Nothing can be taken from him that hasn't already been taken. And for a moment, he lets go of all the training, of all the self-protective mechanisms built into him over the years, and does something wholly based on passion and vengeance. In a brief monologue, Dexter admits, as much as I may have pretended otherwise, for so long all I wanted was to be like other people, to feel what they felt. But now that I do, I just wanted to stop. The show is about Dexter's search for connections, for the ability to feel like other humans. In these final seasons, and in this finale episode, he finds those feelings. But instead of being a joyous occasion, it is a hard, terrible, hellish responsibility, one that he feels wholly inadequate to live up to. In a gut-wrenching scene, he enters Deborah's hospital room, looks at her, and his cool, hard shell begins to crack. As her big brother, he knows that she would never want to live like that. He looks at her, apologizes for everything he made her do, for everything he put her through, and turns off her life support system, and gently pulls out her breathing tube. He sits with her, looks at her face to face, looks at the vital signs on the monitor, leans over, and whispers into her ear, "I love you, Deb." With an impending hurricane looming, the hospital is in a state of disorder. He easily wheels her outside and onto the boat, Slice of Life, and heads out to sea. He makes a final call to Hannah, make sure that they are all right. And she tells him that they are going to make it onto the plane, heading to Argentina. He feigns happiness while talking with her, not wanting to worry her or his son. She passes the phone off to Harrison, and Dexter tells his son one final message: "I love you." He hangs up the phone and tosses it into the ocean. With dark clouds all around and rain and thunder in the background, Dexter looks over at the dead body of his beloved sister, waits a few moments, then gently picks her up, looks at her face for one final pause, and then, like so many of his victims, dumps her into the deep. Dexter can no longer live with the pain that he has caused. In his own words, "I destroy everyone I love. I can't let that happen to Hannah, to Harrison. I have to protect them from me." With harsh resolve, he pilots his ship out and into the storm. Miami seems to have weathered the storm rather well. Reports of Dexter's death reaches the Miami Police Department, and Hannah McKay finds out by reading an article on her tablet. Meanwhile, in the next scene, we learn that Dexter isn't actually dead. He is living as a logger in the Pacific Northwest. His self-imposed exile is his penance for all the wrongs committed, for all the pain caused. He walks into his small house by the ocean, tosses his keys away, and sits down to an empty table. You can see a look of pain, loneliness, and horror on his face. And as the episode ends, he looks at us, as if warning us of the dangers of giving in to our darker natures. All in all, I really enjoyed this episode. It is dark, but so is the overall story of Dexter. Dexter is, among a great many other things, a cautionary tale of man versus his darker impulses, and the consequences of those actions. In the end, Dexter is left completely alone, isolated, and in a great deal of pain and anguish. To be honest, though, I would have preferred it if the episode ended with Hannah learning the news about Dexter's death. Having him survive the storm was too much for my mind to handle. Even in television, I want a semblance of believability and continuity. I think killing Dexter would have been a better ending than a miraculous escape from the clutches of death. But, on the other hand, I really appreciated how the final scene was shot, looking into Dexter Morgan's eyes for one last time. All in all, the series finale, much like the rest of the show, did not fail to disappoint or deliver heartfelt drama, heartache, suspense, and action. What did you think of the final episode? How do you think it should have ended? Comment below, And remember to like and favorite this video if you see fit to do so.